Hey all, this is Siege, and today I want to go over what I feel is next, or at least should be in my opinion, for Destiny and leading directly into Destiny 2. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 4 of the series, consider watching those at some point if you want additional context for this video. I'll leave a link in the description. Right now I want to go into after the April update, the story directly prior to Destiny 2, which based upon the information we've received recently will be releasing in 2017. Before I do that, though, I want to first go into something that I personally would like to see leading into Destiny 2, with the understanding that I'm most likely not going to get it. Here's a question. Do you think they're going to give us an actual ending to the game? You know, a satisfying conclusion to a game that, in the end, cost Year 1 players close to $200 with no real resolution to what's been going on big picture, basically since Oryx's death. Actually, in retrospect, there's not a lot there after 3 years. It's kind of like one game with an added DLC to it. Let me explain. It's long been rumored that major pieces of the story were cut out of the original game to be sold as DLC, and there's a good bit of proof surrounding that as far as the story was concerned. Personally, I think much of this wasn't completed and cut, rather more contextual ideas that just couldn't be finalized quickly enough to make the game's original launch date. That's not to say that if they had more time to finish the game, they wouldn't have still chopped this game up and sold it as DLC, but that's a discussion for another time. I conducted a stream recently going over the basic acts of the game story-wise and realized that it's chopped up into these acts that are, well, really confusing. The campaign level system, which suggests doing missions in level order, move these acts around in a way that convolutes the story entirely, making it almost impossible to understand how the last mission tied to the next one, provided it even does. Narration within the game provides little more than direction to the next waypoint, and even the game's cinematics, which traditionally provide that required narrative and visual accompaniment in other games, go out of their way to not tell you any of the story.
I could tell you of the great battle centuries ago. I could tell you of the power of the darkness.
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
I've mentioned before that most know the reason why the Grimoire is not in the game itself is because it wasn't added until just before launch, so they didn't have time to integrate it. The story in vanilla Destiny lends itself to that completely. After all, what happens? We're resurrected from the dead, we get a ship, we're introduced to our new home, the first mission's introduced Enemy 1, the Fallen, Act 2 introduces us to the Hive, Enemy 2, Act 3, the Vex Cabal and the Awoken, etc, etc, etc. Let's be real here. Leading up to the end of vanilla Destiny, is an actual reason ever established for why we even need to go into the Black Garden at all, other than it being part of the darkness? I mean, I get that they're trying to convey it as bad, but aside from being called the Black Heart, what is the benefit of destroying it? What are we doing? And then that ending.
We feared the forces of darkness massing against us. We sought to hide and cower beneath a broken god. No more. We are what remains of the light, and we will not be stamped out.
It's a day for pretty speeches and medals. But we know the real fight takes place out there. There's so much more, Guardian. I've seen terrible things born out in the darkness. Every moment brings them closer. All ends are beginnings. Our fight is far from over.
What the hell is that? Does it not appear that this is merely a midpoint in the game versus an ending? Come on, man. This goes way beyond a to be continued thing. There's literally no story in vanilla Destiny, other than the typical checklist of what needs to be done to qualify, I guess, as a complete game, and an establishment of the NPCs that you're going to see throughout the game. Let's see. Arrival into the game? Check. Vessel to move around the game with? Check. Enemies in the game? Here they are. Direction to the final bad guy? Yep. Boss fight? Sort of, I guess. A weak one, but okay. Resolution. Ask yourself something. Playing Destiny, now post-Taken King, can you tell me any real difference between the behavior of the Traveler prior to A, the end of the Chamber of Night mission where a crystal siphoning light from the Traveler, actually a piece of the Traveler, was removed, and B, when the heart of the Black Garden is destroyed and light returned to the Traveler? It still just sits there. What was the point of any of that? What did we resolve? What changed because of what we did? I mean, the House of Wolves imprisoned Skolas, which was a significant tyrant trying to unite all of the fallen houses and most likely try to come and take the Traveler back. It made sense to stop him, and the resolution is that the Fallen are still fractured as far as leadership, making them less dangerous. The Dark Below's resolution was the destruction of Crota, Oryx's son, with the obvious resolution of not having the Hive invade Earth. That made sense too. The Taken King is pretty obvious, and even Rise of Iron's resolution was to contain Siva and the fallen devils who had harnessed the power that would eventually try to invade the city with. These all made a difference. This is why it is my belief that the first game most likely was meant to include everything up to the Taken King as the true end of Destiny 1, with Rise of Iron being added as a completely new aspect of the game that was never thought of originally. And I don't think that's a new theory by any stretch of the imagination either. Rumor has it that the Rise of Iron DLC was actually assembled really quickly, so in my mind, this makes sense. So I'm wondering if the end of the Taken King was the actual cinematic conclusion to Destiny 1, or if there is still one to be had. Could we see it in April? Or maybe even a few weeks before Destiny 2? Or will this ending be maybe the opening cinematics of the next game? Well, as much as I want to say that the upcoming April update will offer a satisfying cinematic and deserving ending to the 3-year run of Destiny, we're probably not going to get that. Based on what we know, what's been revealed so far, and in how previous April DLCs have gone, there's little chance we're going to get anything more than potentially some extra missions that could lead into, hopefully, the updated raids we discussed in the previous videos. And more, I believe, even that is thinking pretty generously. So with all that in mind, here's my thoughts on what we will see next. Most likely, the opening cinematics for Destiny 2. As I mentioned in the previous video, I believe Savathun, the cunning sister of Oryx, to be Mara Sov, and I still do. It clears up so many holes in the plot, also in the lore itself, and ties the story together fairly nicely, making it seem like the information in-game and found in the Grimoire all had a purpose versus it being mostly just random story bits populating a lore for the sake of having lore information depot. I believe she's going to play a very important role in Destiny 2. In fact, I think the ruse is going to continue deep into the second game. It's been established through the Mega Blocks building set that the Cabal are going to attack the city. This most likely being the event that allows the game to essentially reset. I mean, after all, if there's no tower, your weapons, armor, everything else is going to be gone. That part's easy and it makes sense. Could also be that the Traveler has finally healed itself enough to leave. After all, it's widely assumed that Rasputin shot the Traveler down originally, and had it not done that, the Traveler would have left us the same way it did with the Fallen. I mean, that's where it was headed, if nothing else. Well, could this event also take away our powers? Or could these invading Cabal just finish what Rasputin started? If there's no Traveler at all, there would be no power to keep our undead bodies alive. Now, consider that as dying husks. If Mara Sov were to offer us the ability to continue living, would we not take it? Would you? And by doing this, if my theory's correct, is something I've wanted to see happen since I started getting into the lore of this game. Darkness powers. Now, if you address the game for how it portrays everything as either good or evil of the light or darkness, one could make the assumption that powers in the game also come from these two sources. The light, perceived as good, with the Traveler being a vessel with the power to also distribute it, and the darkness thought of as evil, which is conveyed using the honest worms as vessels and orcs later in the story who can distribute that. Now, if you accept that as fact, then a loss of our current light powers would really give us only one option on where to go for power in the game. Keep in mind, it might not be called that, most likely quite the opposite. I see this as being a thing offered from the Queen as a way to reclaim ourselves and continue the fight, or just to stay alive in the end. What's cool about this theory is that those Destiny 1 Guardians who decide against buying Destiny 2 for whatever reason and playing it will, in theory, be resisting the temptation to the darkness by staying dead, if you want to look at it from an immersion perspective. And I do so love immersion, which is going to bring this chapter of the series to a close. So what do you think about this? Do you think Destiny will get an actual ending at least? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and share it. Also, if you're new to the channel and would like to be notified of upcoming Destiny and other gaming content, click that subscribe button. At any rate, have a wonderful day and take care all. Bye.